Good evening, everyone. This is the Air Conservation Commission meeting. It is Thursday, January 23rd, 2025. Commissioners in attendance have Jeremiah as member, George Bacon as member. We have Jessica Gino, member clerk, Mark Phillips, vice chair. Heather Hampson, our conservation agent, is not here this evening, and my name is John Smollenberger. I'm the chair. Confirmation of agenda. I think we're good to go. Motion to approve the agenda as written.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. Approval of the meeting minutes for January 9th, 2025. Everyone had an opportunity to look at them.
Uh-oh. He's got a look in his eye.
Just a simple, goofy one. Second page,
Yeah.
where he was describing how far down down the street it was.
Yeah.
You had 3-400.
Oh,
Bottom of
because
the,
I meant 300 to 400.
yeah, add a couple extra zeros.
Okay. 3 feet to 400.
Even though he said 300 to 400,
Yeah.
I'm sure he didn't mean. Well, it's about 3 feet or 400 feet.
Somewhere in between.
He's not that inaccurate. I know him. So that's the only thing I saw. I was going to question the for 38 Groton Harvard. I actually had to look back at the plans. There is actually 3 single-family homes. I did not catch that. Because you say singles, duplexes, triplexes,
Oh,
and all that kind of stuff, and I was like, "There's single." I don't think there's single family.
yeah, and one 5 unit.
Yeah, one
Yeah.
quintuplex or whatever. Okay, but yeah, so that was it.
Anybody else?
That's just dire.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes for January 9th, 2025 as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. Passes unanimously. Public input, we're going to slide right by that. Continued public hearing, notice of intent that we will open under the Wetland Protection Act and also under the Air Wetland Bylaw, DEP file number 100-0496. Culvert project on Bly Street. Would you like to join us, Matt? How are you this evening?
Good. How are you all?
Good, good.
Good.
So there were some DEP comments?
Yes, there were. There were a few of them, but they were all fairly minor.
Good.
Nothing that I think that really needs changing with the plans.
Yep.
The only comment I think that could change the plans, they questioned how far into the bordering vegetated wetlands was really necessary. I think, my opinion was that it's, not possible to not go in, but I guess the question has merit, how far in do you really need? So the riprap apron that I have going in for both the culvert and drain install, that's a fairly kind of conservative, riprap standard that we use just to make sure there isn't erosion. So, if anything, that could be minimized to limit the impacts, but I don't see any other way of limiting impacts.
Yeah,
If it's a project.
So did they mean the distance from the outlet of the culvert, how far out it goes?
I think their comment was they wanted me to bring the pipe more in toward the street, if that makes sense.
That's odd. Yeah.
The outflow of it?
Yeah, exactly. Just to avoid going in and making any sort of impacts.
Oh, okay, so how far, I guess, say from curb to the end of the pipe, how much of that was sticking out? I guess I never thought of asking that.
That's a good question.
'Cause I think that's probably what they're talking about, minimizing, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So that was the only comment I think that, in theory, you could, change or revise a little bit, but I just don't. Just to make sure the pipe has enough cover over it so it's not disturbed in the future. That's the reason why it's shown on the plan where it is.
And you're talking about a couple of feet?
Exactly. So
This is riprap.
riprap, exactly. So
No,
What's the pipe?
again, I'm understanding it more as the pipe, the amount of pipe that goes into the wetland, and then the riprap beyond that.
exactly.
So if you can
That's
shorten
it.
the pipe,
You can shorten the
then the
riprap.
riprap comes back a little bit, I think is kind of what they're getting at.
Exactly. That's the way I interpret it, at least.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I think where you were going was the same thing I was saying, well, you're putting the riprap there to lessen the disturbance of the wetland over time versus the initial disturbance to begin with. But, yeah, I guess if there is a way to shorten the pipe so that let's say it's not 5 feet into the wetland before the riprap, if that's excessive, then, yeah, I'm sure you're not gonna throw in a lot of extra pipe just for the heck of it.
Exactly. We're not going to do any more than what's on the plan, and the plan was very conservative. Just we don't want to start the project and go, oh man, we got to do more
Yeah.
than we thought. So anyway, the DEP comments were all very minor, so I didn't have any issues with what they sent.
Okay. So if we approve it as is, what's the worst that they would just say? You have to change it?
I mean, I have answers for really all their questions.
Yeah.
There's nothing really that said like this is wrong, this must be changed, or they were all kind of open-ended questions,
Yeah, I was gonna
more or
say,
less.
they were saying if it could be adjusted or can it be adjusted so that it's shorter, essentially. They weren't saying you must make it no more than such and such.
Exactly. That was
I think we're good.
more or less their comments. But they usually just, not that I have a lot of experience with this, but they usually always have a lot to comment on. They know, obviously, a lot about the Wetlands Protection Act. They can cite any sort of standard and regulation in there pretty
Mhm.
quickly, so.
Okay. Anybody have any concerns about the length of the pipe sticking out
No.
as it is?
I'd just say, I'd agree. Minimize it if you can and go with that.
Yep. Anything else? Any more discussion on the project before we get into it? Negative?
And we should just cite, to include 2 conditions that DEP had suggested at our last meeting, that the COC not be issued until 75% of the vegetation has been restored, and that conservation be provided with the O&M plan for the area, once you have one.
Absolutely.
Okay. Those are probably in the orders, aren't they?
You should look, just,
I should look.
well, she already, oh, the orders, yeah.
I'm assuming it's in there.
So probably like second to last page or something like that. Anything special, I guess, basically.
Yeah, that was a comment DEP had about the 75%
Mhm.
for restoration.
No.
So if it's not in there, we should probably
Oh.
change it.
Another add it.
Well, we can,
So we're planning on bidding the project, putting it out for bid next week, so we can open bids in February. So that's our plan right now. Obviously, plans can change. So if it has to change, then it's not.
Sign it and tell Heather not to issue it until she makes those two.
Okay.
We can do that.
We don't want to hold you up. Motion to approve the notice of intent, DEP file number 100-0496. Not the
Well-
orders, but not just the notice of intent.
The additional orders discussed.
Yes. Once approve upon being amended, basically, then, right?
Yep. Did you hear that?
I'll get it down somewhere. So are we doing one motion to approve the notice of intent? Or are we doing the whole blanket motion?
Blanket.
Blanket. Okay, I'll get it all in there. Okay. Got it.
Motion to approve the notice of intent, DEP file number 100-0496 with the aforementioned additions.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. Passes unanimously. So we'll sign these, I guess, right? That she can
Yeah, we can sign
add
it.
changes to it.
Then we want to close. Close it.
Yeah.
It's not a hearing.
Yeah, it is, it's a public hearing. It's a notice of intent.
Okay.
It was the Willow Road last time that was the RDA.
Yeah.
Yeah. Save the best for last.
Any other discussion before we close? Motion to close the public hearing. Notice of intent, DEP file number 100-0496.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you too, Matt.
Happy night.
All right, next item this evening is a review of the conservation analysis at 38 Groton Harvard Road. That's where we went and had our site walk. It was a nice piece of property, I thought. Yeah. Comments?
Do we have a draft?
Draft? Oh,
Or that we make
she-
any comments and then she'll draft it?
right. I think that's what she said in her email.
Yeah.
Just send her what we wanted.
Yep.
Do we feel we're prepared to go ahead and get a draft put together? Or is there other things we're still looking for? Like
This,
locations of major trees and such, as opposed to just saying it's over here somewhere. Isn't it?
what is it you're asking? You want,
So
you
I-
want them to designate all the trees over a certain size? Or?
Yeah, isn't part of what we had wanted to do with the conservation analysis is to have essentially a, what's the word I'm looking for? Logging of the various trees. Not logging, probably a poor choice of word. Record taking of the location of trees over a certain diameter, right? Something to that effect, just to get confirmation.
Well, the only area it would make sense would be in the area where they want to put the basin that they're going to disturb. And just because the rest of it, they're going to stay. Or above that, they're going to develop.
Oh, yeah, but the whole idea of the analysis is you look at it without thinking about development. So you want to, because if somebody wants to challenge it, They may want to say, well, you've got these trees up here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
I think again, the fact that unfortunately we were given the layouts, right?
Yeah,
Remember even when they presented last week, it's like 91 is what the regular thing would say to do, right? And they show you that and you're like, oh, and then but this is what the open space would let us do. And it's like, oh, but we're still supposed to be, agnostic of that. We should not have technically seen that at all, right?
right.
Probably,
Yeah.
yeah.
But not that what analysis was done was bad. I thought it was really darn good. The only one question I do have though is, how can they have confirmation with such a dry period of no vernal pools or anything like that? Like,
That that area's been walked a few times. It's such a steep slope that I trust that on that particular area, I trust that there aren't any vernal pools there. There's not going to be holding water in that slope. George?
Except maybe where the basin's going.
I mean, that area,
Yeah.
also in and around the rocks. I mean,
Yeah.
I've literally been in essentially like
Okay.
a former quarried area, let's say,
Okay.
and inside the actual rocks there's like the only water in the whole area was this, basically created like a pool, literally like a granite pool.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was standing there watching, everything was coming to that to drink. The birds,
Yeah.
squirrels, it was like unbelievable. It was like the only water anywhere.
And where was this?
Over by the power lines,
Okay. Okay.
Westford Road.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was interesting. And again, I was somewhat high up,
Yep. Hmm.
So they were given the advice for how to prepare a conservation analysis by the planning board, right? Or,
But I thought we had guidelines. Like, weren't they
we
supposed to be
do.
following that?
Yeah.
Did we put some sort of
Yeah.
guidelines, bylaw, something together about that, right? And again, I
Yeah.
thought that was one of the items was
So, but that's
a
who would have,
analysis and
yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you, but the planning board would have been the one to say, here, you need to prepare
gotcha.
a conservation analysis, and so, yeah, we, I guess, should make clear
Hmm.
certain things, like we shouldn't see a layout.
Yeah, and I'm certainly no expert in this, but where the basin is going, it didn't have the look of being wet,
Yeah,
but the vegetation.
just as something I was reading, possibly was it from Page or whatever? Like, you're not supposed to be looking at anything since September. Any
Mhm.
sort of wetland delineation since
Yeah.
September.
It might be okay now because we're no longer in severe drought, but,
You know,
but
whatever I just read
DEP
said it still continues.
it still continues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So that's another question, is how can we evaluate with, with that ban on?
And I see why they did what they did and,
Yeah.
and had the construction up towards the nursing home area. Just as far as orientation goes, I can see why.
and I'm not
why they
saying
did
that I
it.
would disagree with
Right.
what is the highest priority stuff, right? Or the
Mhm.
most desirable, whatever you want to call it. But
Yep.
it has a conservation value.
Right.
Yeah, I was very much for you're going to build here where all this invasive is, great,
And the house is already there, and the driveway is already there, and
and pre-disturbed, right, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I just think it's something to make sure that we get, I was just looking to see if I had taken a picture of that pool, but I had not, unfortunately, sorry.
The only other thing I would like to just mention there would be, since we're mentioning things, is when we did John Carroll Reserve, they did put the basin into the open space area, but the open space area was bigger than the 50%. And so we had, I think with that analysis, said as long as a surface basin's going into open space, it doesn't count towards the required 50%, we were okay with that.
But is that how the open space regulations got written, though?
They were ambiguous.
Okay, because I know the planning board is saying, I thought Heather had mentioned the planning board wants to not have them on people's properties anymore. The detention basins.
Right, but are they doing that now? Okay. I mean, that seems like that's something we should have a discussion with them with.
Yeah, because I'm in the same opinion as you were, right? Sounds big, but when you get out there, 6 acres, it wasn't that big.
Not that big, and it's like
And then
if
it's
the
a 1
spirit,
acre
yeah, if the
detention
spirit of
pond.
open space is to be usable open space, I would still just discourage them from making accommodations with developers. I mean, it sort of makes sense on this one topographically, based on what we shouldn't know, which is the proposed layout.
Yeah.
But as a general rule, I don't think they should be helping developers squeeze in more units by letting them use up open space.
And that's why I suggested, is it possible to have a few smaller ones as opposed to one large one smack dab right in the middle of the open space?
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess I'd have to think about that more. It's like, but does that open space create like a little bit of a wet area for things to come and enjoy? You know, so it's like, is it good? Is it really, or is it bad? I don't know.
I mean, exceptions can be made, but I think as a general rule, we should push back on a few things a little bit.
And the exception becomes the precedent too, right? If other people come back to us and they're like, will you let this
Well,
develop?
the zoning board, nothing is established as
No.
precedent. Even though developers come in and say, you already did this, it's not precedent legally. But I don't know if that applies to planning board. But, I mean, we don't want them to have established a precedent that they can draw a conservation restriction with those skinny lines either, even though they did it once. So. I still think it'd be good to sometime for us to go talk to the planning board. And while I think we did try to invite them, I don't think they're going to get off. I don't think they're going to come to us.
You're not coming to us, we're coming to you.
Yeah, and
Careful what you wish
so
for.
I don't know. We still want to. I think there are a few. Like this could give us a good opportunity to talk to them about conservation analyses, and OSRDs and conservation restrictions.
You want to do that with the board as a whole, or you just want
Yeah,
a couple
don't
people?
you think?
I don't know.
I mean, I think it should be in one of their meetings, on camera, quorum,
Okay.
joint. I don't know. That would be my view. What do you all think? Yeah.
Makes sense.
It'd be a good conversation to have.
Get our story straight.
Yeah, because I mean, Heather can represent us, but she's also there taking minutes for them. It's a sort of weird position, and
What do you think, George? Has got any thoughts on how this is going? Or what we should recommend?
Can you see the lines a little bit better on yours? Was this a low point or a high point? Do you remember?
Page 340.
This is 330 here.
guess they still on the inside have to get all the way in there.
How's your arm doing, Jen?
And then you'd have to go through rock.
Still not fully movable, but close. Yeah,
You'll get there.
I'll get there.
Well, I mean, I don't know, couldn't they just go right underneath it?
Yeah, that's.
Or, well, they got a gap here, and a gap here. Why couldn't they put it there, and then just run this as an easement right through there? Down.
Well, this belongs to the,
This does?
this easement?
Oh, this is not their property?
No,
Oh, crap, okay.
Is that the bit that they sold to the nursing home?
yeah.
Okay.
And I also think we haven't really talked with the planning board since they have a new town planner. So, might be good to put in our perspective on like, okay, when we say, conservation signs in the back of a lot, in the middle of the lot, not on the corners where everybody can ignore them.
Yep.
And, you know, if he wants to push back, then we get to hear what it is, and we can discuss. So what do we want to tell Heather?
Wait a minute. George's got it.
Oh,
Well, most of my comments are actually on their design and how it impacts what is probably going to be our land.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of them was about how we're going to prevent them from dumping leaves and snow into the conservation land.
downhill.
And is there any public access into the conservation land from High Street? Because the residents here and the neighbors shouldn't have to drive all the way around to get into it.
To Groton Harvard Road, that
Yeah.
area. So there should be an access up by the nursing home place area, you mean?
Yeah, somewhere. I was thinking at the end of this street here.
Mm-hmm.
Which street?
This,
Is that a paper street?
that's a proposed street.
Proposed.
Okay.
I call it the eastmost street. Plus, if there's a medical emergency here, you know, make it easier for the EMTs to get there.
Mm.
Can you point to where you're talking about?
Here,
Go from there.
yeah. We got this little strip here.
So access from High Street is something you would like to see.
Yeah,
And then.
Public access.
Public access,
Yeah.
right.
pedestrian access.
And as far as leaves and snow,
How are they gonna handle that?
who's they?
Well,
Homeowners Association?
yeah, and the builder and making accommodation. I don't see any snow storage areas.
Did they,
Right.
yeah, I guess, will there be dumpsters at all? Or is it expected that people will utilize the transfer station and or have for hire trash? Because that would be, like you said, you know, leaves, potentially composting, having that carted away at all, or if
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah. Assuming they obey it, I mean,
Right.
Our species.
What?
Our species.
Good points.
yeah, and then there's a drain outlet just outside of their property into ours. Here, it just goes overland.
And that's just from the streets?
And there's a little parking area here, looks like it's coming from that.
Does it have like a,
Hmm.
Yeah, I thought that was, you're talking about this one, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought that was out. It's like, why is that not just brought down into here?
yeah.
Well, it's just just Doesn't mean anything, right? To us, it shouldn't mean anything.
Yeah, but since
Shouldn't
they
even-
gave it,
Yeah, I think we should comment it before it becomes set in stone.
Rip rap.
no,
It's a good point.
So essentially, any stormwater needs to reach the basin. It can't have just its own normal outfall.
Yeah.
so can you just circle the two spots on here for both the, where you think there should be public access and then also the drain?
In the end, this would be what's drafted up in conservation analysis then.
Yeah,
I see more notes.
Yeah. And I think it'd be nice if they could connect this public land over to the town-owned land on William Street, somewhere over here.
How do you propose?
I don't, I just suggest.
Okay.
that would be something that if we didn't know what their layout was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What is this supposed to have been?
It's a paper street.
The little circle. Massachusetts, Cambridge.
How are they gonna get in to maintain the basin?
It's just full of good questions.
Yeah, that is a good one, because that's gonna be like a little maintenance road of some kind.
Yeah.
And that
Well, I
goes
think
into
they
the
had talked
open
about that
space.
with taking it down to Groton Harvard, that's where they would run like the utilities down through there, so if you wanna call it a path and or a sort of like a gravelly road or
Yeah.
dust road or something, that's what they'd have to use.
But that's again the cutting into the open space.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
So philosophically, we should have a discussion with the planning board about what do they mean by open space versus what we mean by open space.
Yep.
And so we're on the same page.
Write that down.
And I think on the sidewalk, they said that they could move or reshape the basin if needed.
On the sidewalk? What was
On the
it?
sidewalk.
On the sidewalk. Sure.
He
Right.
said he could reshape it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with the whole tree thing too. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
so can we shift it 10 feet this way and 3 feet that way and make it kidney shaped, or
yeah.
do whatever you got to do?
Yeah.
Because we might find that there's actually some sort of nice stuff there. I thought some of the big trees were kind of cool looking and it'd be nice to hold on to them.
Sure.
So, even to the extent, be it if it was a squirrel den or something else's nest, would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
By big trees, do you have a size in mind that they should designate?
It's in the guidelines.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought we
So-
had that laid out in the guidelines. I think we may have been 8 inches or larger, I thought.
Thought it was 20, but
20? Oh, I don't
Never
think
know.
that big. Few and far between to find those.
let's see. 3 divided by 2 is 14.
There we go.
My former more anal self may have a copy of the guidelines in here. She should. She doesn't. Oh wait, she. Here are the guidelines. Yes, number
Good for you.
clerk. Clerk power.
You're gonna have big shoes to fill in some big shoes.
Look at Jen. John really wants to take a break from Sharon at some point.
There.
I actually thought that you weren't gonna be here and we would just make a motion.
I'm missing our first meeting in March, so you can go ahead and make the motion.
Okay, very good. Someplace good?
Norway.
Oh, nice. Nice.
I come back the day before our second meeting, so I'll be super jet lagged and I'll agree to anything. It'll be great.
So, Norway. You crossing England's great big pond to get there?
Is that what we're calling the Atlantic Ocean now?
Yeah.
Should hook you up with our neighbors who went to Norway. They love the reindeer hot dogs.
This is Andrew, Kathleen. They're currently though in
Thailand.
Thailand.
Slightly different climate than Norway.
There is this one spot where there's a huge bridge connecting all these islands. It's like it's supposed to be a really cool loop to do.
Have to Google it. I don't, it depends if we're going there or not.
So it says specimen trees shall be identified by species, size, approximate full height, and trunk diameter at 5 feet from the ground and health.
Doesn't
So we
say
don't
what.
necessarily say we want a survey and a tally of anything a certain size. So that's what I guess we ended up with. I thought we had done that.
So
So I guess
maybe-
to the extent, I guess they kind of did that, right? Identified the kind of the oak area, the pine area, the white birch area. Yeah, I mean, it just says by species, then size, approximate full height.
They should show all these things on the plan.
What's that?
Anything else?
I had a couple questions. What these two parking areas? What,
Lindsay?
I was
I've
wondering,
got it.
is this going to be public road or private road?
Where are the parking areas?
Where that drainage comes out?
Yeah, I bet you that's where they're gonna put the mailboxes. You got a parking area there, and then you got another little one over just west of it.
I see there's all series in 1, 2, 3, 4 on here.
Yeah, yeah. Additional parking for that? For what?
Overnight guests,
Mm-hmm.
families with 2 cars.
Well, they got one garage, and you got a driveway, so.
Everybody knows your garage fills up with crap and you can't put a car in it.
There you go.
You have a garage?
Yes.
Yeah,
How's your garage?
it's got a lot of crap in it. I still get in there.
Get them in there. You think the towns will take over the roads? They normally do, don't they?
Usually, I mean, like, what's the complex off the circle, the Shoba, the condos there.
Oh, yeah.
They have a private road to the complex. So
Something to ask.
So what is the question here?
this is a public or private roads.
Guess that was part of the conservation analysis.
Not that that really matters to us. Doesn't really matter to us. Public is coming in off of here, and they're coming in on a private road to get in there.
There's gonna be that parking area on Groton Harvard Road, and that little skinny strip that leads up, so,
Yeah, where the old house is, basically,
yeah.
or the current house is, right?
And so there's proposed trails in there.
I guess it's going back to like I was originally saying, how many trails you're gonna have on 6 acres? It's like, I mean, we could basically see all directions for the most part, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep. Be nice to have some way to get in there, though.
oh no, I don't disagree. You know, again, coming up from Groton Harbor, like I said, up toward to the detention pond or whatever, and
Yep.
you know, and then maybe teeing off from there. But yeah.
You're not gonna spend hours in there. You know,
With the detention pond, again, possibly creating sort of that gathering spot. You never know; it might be halfway decent for doing some bird watching on it.
Yep. Sure.
Seeing a muskrat or two every once in a while.
That'd be nice for the neighborhood too, just like something else to.
To have a
walk
little
in.
place to walk.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just to stretch the legs, allow their dogs to roam.
To roam.
Something we want to make sure is identified outside of just our conservation thing, that if there is a trail proposed, that there's appropriate signage about picking up refuse and stuff.
So how do we want to proceed? What do we tell Heather?
What do we tell her?
We have questions?
All the, yeah. All these things that you.
Okay.
I guess I'd ask her to go back through and do another read through of the analysis they provided, and have her give us an opinion as to does she feel it fulfills the conservation analysis requirement in the OSRD, or do you feel it already does?
No, you can ask her.
I mean, she may say, I've already read it and it already does, so yes, it's done.
So if she feels it meets the requirements as outlined in the guidelines.
Right.
Okay. And then just list all our different points, questions. And then should we raise with her the possibility of us meeting with the planning board, or to discuss further, or?
So their next meeting is next week.
Yeah.
This is coming before them next week.
Yeah, I think so.
So I don't know that we have. If we want to give them our analysis for next week, we don't have time, right? So how strongly do we feel about holding this specifically up versus just having a conversation in general?
Well, the analysis has to be, we have to provide some sort of analysis, right? But I think, as you said, I don't think it's going to get to them next week.
Well, we can't.
They're on Tuesday, correct?
Yeah. I mean,
It's what, half day tomorrow?
we can't issue the analysis until we've seen a draft and
Right.
we've voted on it, so
Agreed.
we're not going to anyways. I thought Heather said something about that, but did she?
I think she just said to give her our notes,
Okay.
and she would draft up the recommendation. Which I kind of took to mean draft it
Oh.
up for next week, but
Yeah.
maybe I'm just reading.
Jen, you mean next week or our next session?
I didn't realize we were gonna have to, I thought she would have something for them for next week. But-
Can you look at your emails?
What else? So this is the one she sent for tonight. Just says gather any and all comments to me in an email. I can draft the recommendation to the planning board. And I think that's the only one that mentions this.
So do we want a conservation analysis in draft form submitted to the planning board without us having looked at what's being submitted?
No. I don't.
Especially since we had questions and not just
Yeah.
comments.
Mm-hmm.
Well, George had questions and not just comments.
George.
I guess I'd like to see the draft be
Or,
kind of a section talking about just the property in general. And then maybe comments that are more directed based on what they
Yeah.
provided us.
Mhm.
It might be good to separate the two.
Yeah.
to say that again.
So the conservation analysis should really focus on this, right? Just this,
The whole
what the
property.
property looks like and such, right?
The whole property as understood.
Right.
Okay.
But it should contain a section that essentially references the layout that they provided us. Maybe like even the last section. What do you think?
No, I think that's good. I'm just thinking for future, I don't know how many more we're gonna get, but, OSRDs, I mean, how much more land there is in Ayer, but,
They keep saying that, and they keep popping up.
they keep popping up, yeah.
Hospital property.
I just feel if a message is passed down to the planning board that really the guidelines, you know, that we shouldn't be seeing a developed parcel plan, I mean, if that message is just passed down, I don't think it's gonna make a dent.
Well, but they
Why?
didn't provide us the plans.
But they had to have provided the applicant with the guidelines, and that they had to come before us, and somehow in that they came before us with the plans.
Well, they're always gonna have plans.
Oh, I know, but they gave us the plans.
We didn't have to accept them, but we did.
How do you unsee something, too?
Well, you could say, well, this is what it, stop right there.
Okay, well, okay.
No, I guess I'm just saying, I don't think it's really that it's their fault per se. I think
Well,
it's
no,
just,
I
you know,
mean, it
again, the
just-
developers just kind of get into it, they start talking, it's like, hey,
Yeah.
and this is all the good stuff we're doing.
Right, we're also dealing with a new town planner since the previous town planner who helped draft this.
Okay.
So it'd be, just to, like,
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is in the future, when they come to the planning board should say, so that's fine,
Or-
you still have to go and have the conservation analysis done and take it before the conservation board. However,
and
do
that,
not show them anything with regards to what your development's
but
gonna
that
look like.
also is a conversation with the town planner, because I think a lot of stuff
Okay.
goes directly to him before it starts to open before the planning board itself as well.
Well, I'd say we should ask Heather to reinforce that with the new planner.
Yeah. Or I could write our minutes such that we then copy him.
Sure.
Why not?
Okay.
That's fair.
make it very pleasantly pointed.
And then you might save us having to go to talk to the planning board.
Yeah, yeah. Start there. Okay,
I think that's a good compromise. I'd like that.
okay. Because I think a lot of things, an applicant, I think first they come and they talk to the town planner and the building director, superintendent, whatever, and find out what they need and then to do before they start coming to which board, where. So that's like the first point of information.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any, on this particular review?
At some point, are we gonna be asked to state whether or not we want to accept the conservation land?
We accept, meaning who?
Oh, for the open space to be like a conservation restriction?
Or to be owned by the Conservation Commission?
Do we want to do that?
I don't know whether now is the time or does it come later? I'm not sure how the process works there.
I think they're just assuming we will, usually.
Yeah, I don't want to have a poor piece of land dumped on us.
So can phrase that as the Conservation Commission wants to know how that is determined, since we assume we don't automatically have to accept land. It's like that.
Do we have a voice in the disposition of the conservation land?
Okay. Do we have,
Open space? Not necessarily conservation land, right? Just open space? Or is that not the right term?
it's the conservation restriction land, yeah.
It's either conservation restriction or just conservation land, or
Although as the OSRD is currently written, it has to be put into a conservation restriction.
I guess that's kind of what I was getting at. It's like,
Yeah.
it's not conservation land until it goes through the process, right?
well, I mean, if they give it to the town,
Yeah.
What is the open space? Yeah, what does that say with regards to the open space is expected or will revert to conservation land? Is that what it says? Of the fish and wildlife.
Shall show the land to be permanently preserved by a conservation restriction. Until they change that. Yeah. Oh, so we to say, how are they making that decision? Do we have a voice, blah, blah, blah?
Is they the planning board?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what are their assumptions regarding either the town or the conservation role in that?
You got a lot of good stuff there, George. What else you got?
that's it.
I'm going to label this section George. George's questions.
Anybody else?
Good questions. Yeah.
Alrighty, so you get this all to Heather.
Yeah. And then Actually, because we won't approve our minutes till our next meeting, why don't I do the minutes, but then also take out the section on this and also send it to Heather as our general question, so it could be, she could comment on it before that.
Yeah, because we
And-
don't know what she's thinking.
And so I will try to do that, maybe send it to you to see if, or you, one other person, to see if this sounds what we're talking about. And then send that to Heather and copy Danny and the chair of the planning board. Okay.
Any conservation member updates? No. Anything else at all? Motion,
Is that the thing that's going to Heather?
yep. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay? Passes unanimously.